egentlig den mest uhyggelige gyser nogensinde? Det er en diskussion, der ofte tages blandt filmnørder og kritikere, og som regel lander svaret på en af genrens store klassikere, såsom Psycho, Exorcisten,
Nobody believed it, and nothing could stop it.
Ridley Scott's Alien, eller Stanley Kubricks Ondskabens Hotel.
Here's Johnny!
Men et nyt videnskabeligt studie har slået fast, at det er en langt nyere gyser, der faktisk er verdenshistoriens mest uhyggelige film. Nemlig Scott Derricksons Sinister fra 2012. En gruppe engelske videnskabsfolk nåede frem til den konklusion ved at udsætte 50 forsøgspersoner for 120 timers gyserfilm. Undervejs målte de deltagernes hjerterytmer, og ud fra de tal, så var Sinister altså den film, der gav allerstørst udslag. Og Sinister er da også en god gedigen gyser med masser af gribende og grumme sekvenser.
That's the family who lived here.
Og her i Moovy TV kan vi præsentere et dybdeborende arkiv-interview med filmens instruktør og manuskriptforfatter Scott Derrickson, som har masser af interessante ting at sige, både om sin egen film og om gysergenren som helhed.
Cut. Good. That was really good. Let's do one more.
Derrickson er nok bedst kendt for at have lavet Marvel-hittet Doctor Strange med Benedict Cumberbatch og Mads Mikkelsen. Men gysergenren har altid været Derricksons foretrukne domæne. Han debuterede som instruktør med Hellraiser Inferno, den 5. film om den grufulde Pinhead.
Welcome to hell.
Derricksons allerførste biograffilm var den kritikerroste The Exorcism of Emily Rose, hvorefter han lavede det ujævne og stærkt kritiserede science fiction remake The Day the Earth Stood Still.
If the earth dies, you die. If you die, the earth survives.
Og så vendte Derrickson fluks tilbage til gysergenren og lavede Sinister, efterfulgt af Deliver Us From Evil med Eric Bana. Ethan Hawke har hovedrollen i Sinister, hvor han spiller en krimiforfatter, der flytter ind i et hus, hvor der er sket en forfærdelig forbrydelse. Og mens forfatteren efterforsker sagen, begynder onde kræfter at terrorisere både ham og hans familie.
The only link between all these cases is the symbol.
The symbol is associated with a pagan deity named Bughuul. He consumes the souls of human children.
Scott, thank you for Sinister, a horror movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, or I don't know if enjoyment is really the correct word.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's not necessarily meant to be enjoyed, but you know, if you enjoy being scared, then you know, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And you've mentioned before in previous interviews that you think one of the good things about horror is that it makes you face your fears. And one of the things that I like about it is that I almost get a sense when I watch really good horror movies that it's almost a cathartic experience. I almost walk away feeling cleansed in some way. Is that the way you feel about horror films as well?
Yeah, for sure. You know, when an audience goes in and sees a really scary movie, they don't come out, you know, dark and oppressed and thinking, oh, who can I kill? Or they come out laughing. They come out something having been lifted from them. And I think there's something very cathartic about a good horror film. And I think that it makes you grateful for your own life. You know, when you see something really scary and then the lights come on and you leave the theater, it's great because you know that it didn't really happen and your life is so much better than the atrocity that you've seen on film. And there's something about that whole experience that makes you both better equipped to deal with the real horrors of life and makes you grateful that your life isn't so bad.
So you come out relaxed until you come home, look in the mirror, and you're fearful that some demonic...
Yeah, that. If the movie's good, there's always this strange pattern of being really happy when you leave, then you go to dinner, and then you get home and you're alone, and then you're scared again.
And the whole experience comes back.
Yeah, the whole experience comes back, and that can happen for a few nights in a row. But it's worth it because then you get over it, and then you love the film again.
But it's interesting because the movie is obviously about a horror author, or author who writes crime stories and stories about murders and that sort of stuff. And you've also, as both a writer and director, you've dealt with very dark material as well, horror movies, several within the genre. Is there some part of you that's reminiscent of this character?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of autobiography in Sinister. You know, I really relate to the writing life that's portrayed there. Even the sweater that he wears all the way through the movie. A lot of writers like me, that when they're writing, they have their writing sweater. You know, I like to keep my house cool. I wear the same sweater all the time. Ethan asked to wear glasses exactly like mine. You know. And Ethan and I talked at great length about it, you know, that I related a lot to this character in that, you know, I made my first film that did very well, and my second film wasn't quite as well received, you know, and so that gave me that feeling of, oh, I need to keep my status up, I need to stay successful, and I didn't like the way that felt, and I didn't like the things I was thinking about, and so the process of writing Sinister was a way of confronting some of those fears myself. To me, what's interesting about Sinister is that it is a truly scary movie, and it's a paranormal movie. It has, you know, supernatural horror in it, but the biggest driving fear in the movie is in the character, which is a driving fear of losing his own fame and fortune.
Wait, did you say 2976, like 2976?
Yeah, why? Does that mean something to you?
No, it doesn't. No, thank you, Deputy. Before the Stevensons moved here, they lived where the Miller family murders happened. Holy shit.
And the fact that he's more afraid of that than these horrible films he's looking at, he's more afraid of losing his status than the weird supernatural things that are starting to happen, that's what makes, I think, his character interesting and a bit relatable.
Yeah, I can notice the glasses now that you mentioned them.
Yeah.
But do you feel that you sort of take all that scariness home with you, sort of like the character does in the story, where it kind of intertwines into his dreams and his life? And I mean, when you were delving into that sort of scary stuff as a writer and director, does it affect your life? Or
it tends to be a little difficult in the beginning. You know, when you're first starting to write a story like this. Certainly, when I was first starting to do research on the exorcism of Emily Rose, that initial writing phase can be a bit dark and depressing, you know, because that's when you're trying to connect with what's truly disturbing about the story, and you're trying to face what it is about it that makes you afraid. And I always feel that if I'm not afraid of the subject matter, if I don't feel afraid of the story, then the audience won't feel afraid. You know, some horror directors, I think, just want to scare an audience, but they don't really get scared themselves, and so their movies aren't scary. And you've got to feel a real sense of danger in the material. But the more you work on it, the more you work through that, and the result is you stop feeling that fear and you start to feel that levity. And so by the time you're shooting one of these movies, it's actually a lot of fun, you know, because you've kind of processed the ideas in it and processed what you needed to think through or feel through conceptually and in the writing stage. And then the making of the movie is very physical, and it's a great experience.
But it must be slightly difficult being the director and being behind the camera, knowing the makeup, knowing the mechanisms of the whole thing, to grade or to sense what is actually scary. Of course, the audience comes into the darkness of the cinema and doesn't have a clue of what's about to happen, but you know every single beat, how everything is put together. Is that difficult to fine-tune and to sense what is actually effective?
I think it's probably typically difficult, but I think that's the skill set of a good director. You know, if you're able to envision the way these different components are going to fit together, the way that the music and the picture and the lighting and the performance are all going to line up with the narrative story, you can envision how an audience is going to be affected. And that's really the job of the director more than anything else, is to be able to imagine the end result one piece at a time. And sometimes, you know, you can do things that help the rest of the crew understand that as well. You know, I found music for the Super 8 films in Sinister before we started shooting, and I would play that music over loudspeakers while we were shooting, so that everybody could feel this is what it's going to sound like. This is the scary, weird music that's going to play. And I think that made a big impact on the crew and how the camera was operated and even how it was lit and how the performances went. Like, everybody got it because I was able to give them more pieces of the picture right there on set. But that's what good directing is. Good directing is having an imagination and being able to predict the way these things will go together in the end.
It must be a really interesting genre to deal with aesthetically as well, because you get to experiment much more with the visuals, the audio, the music, all those stylistic elements than you do in, let's say, a drama piece.
It's one of my favorite things about the horror genre. It's probably the most single cinematic genre there is. There really isn't another genre that calls for such ambitious use of lighting and dramatic use of lighting and such ambitious and audacious use of sound design and music and things like that, you know. And it's one of the reasons why I don't see myself doing, you know, a typical, you know, video camera found footage movie, because they don't have any of that, you know. And I like cinema that's full and has lots to, you know, interact to.
But how do you think of a character like Mr. Boogie? Because I think he's one of the scariest figures that I've seen in a horror movie in years. Does that process take place?
You know, we conceptualized him first without any visual ideas. It was just the mystery of the figure himself. And when it came time to actually figure out the design of it, I was listening to a lot of black metal music and looking for soundtrack ideas for the film, and started looking at a lot of black metal art and Norwegian black metal art and the Norwegian corpse paint on some of these album covers, which I thought was really scary. And so you can see that obviously in the Bughuul, you know, Mr. Boogie character. But then I went on Flickr and I was looking through thousands of images on Flickr, and I found an image that I thought was so great, and I just bought that picture, and that really is what Mr. Boogie looks like. I bought it from the guy who created it, and I gave that picture to the makeup artist, and I said, make him look like this. And that's where it came from.
The car hood, that is from Sacramento. That's about 30 years ago.
Tell me about the one in Sacramento.
It's a symbol associated with the worship of a pagan deity.
A deity? What kind of deity?
A very obscure one, dating back to Babylonian times, named Bughuul, the eater of children.
Did you say eater?
Talk a bit about the cast, maybe. Ethan Hawke, because we talked about it a bit before, that he was maybe a bit skeptical about the genre. How did you get him on board?
You know, yeah, he's not a big horror fan, you know, he likes The Shining, you know, he likes some of the best horror films that have been made, but for the most part he gets really scared watching horror films, so he doesn't particularly like to go see them, and for that reason, he wasn't sure he wanted to be in one, you know, because he doesn't feel that he fully understands the genre. And when I met with him, he liked the script very much, and he was interested in the character, and I just told him, I said, you don't have to understand the horror genre. Ellison Oswalt, your character's not in a horror film, he's in his own drama. And I said, just play it like you would an indie drama. And I said, and leave the rest of it to me, and that's what he did. And I think he got really into it because he discovered in the course of doing it that there's an interesting relationship between horror and comedy, and that there was a scene that we were shooting, the scene when he walks down the hallway and finds the box, and I gave him some of the most specific direction I gave him in the whole movie was for that scene. I said, okay, when you reach the end of this little opening of the hallway, stop and stare, and then walk. Okay, no, don't walk that fast, walk a little slower, then stop. And I remember in the course of shooting it, he goes, I get it. Horror is like comedy. It's like telling a joke. It's just all in the timing. I said, exactly. And he said, and you understand the timing? I said, I understand the timing. You know, and I think at that point he relaxed a little bit and felt like it was not going to be so difficult.
You mentioned The Shining, and it's difficult not to think about it when you watch the movie, obviously because it is about an author who moves into a place where a horrible tragedy has occurred and he starts to, you know, sense things and feel things. Was that one of your inspirations? And what are some of your favorite horror movies? Some of your favorite horror movie inspirations?
The Shining is the biggest horror movie inspiration on Sinister. I gave a copy of The Shining to Ethan to watch. He had seen it before, but I gave him some specific scenes to look at. The three probably best horror films, in my opinion, would be The Exorcist, of course, The Shining, and probably The Changeling, the Canadian film, which also was really the other big inspiration on this one. I think The Changeling, just in my opinion, the best ghost story, you know, movie that's been made.
Within this old house live two residents. One of them is John Russell, composer, professor. The other has been dead for over 70 years.
Claire, I'd like to talk to you about the house.
But there were, you know, the cinematic influences on Sinister were really more obscure and unlikely. Blowout, Brian De Palma's Blowout, I gave a copy of that to Ethan because the movie is a procedural. Sinister is a procedural, and there's a lot of scenes where Ethan is at his computer, you know, trying to solve a mystery and putting things together and dealing with film editing and all of that. And I showed him this Brian De Palma movie, Blowout, where John Travolta is a sound designer cutting together film and trying to solve a mystery by syncing film and his sound recording, and it's very compelling, and it really works.
He recorded a murder they say never happened.
And then Clute, the Alan Pakula movie starring Donald Sutherland, was perhaps the darkest lit film I've ever seen by the great director of photography, Gordon Willis. And I gave a copy of that to the DP, Chris Knorr, and told him, I said, I want the movie to be this dark. You know, and he got very excited about that, about the prospect of making a movie that's visually darker than what you typically see in a movie.
How do you think, because the horror movie genre, I personally feel, I think there are a lot of great movies, like I say, some of them are just out to just throw cheap scares at you as well. But it seems like the horror genre doesn't really quite get the recognition that it really deserves compared to so many other genres. And like when you look at big movie celebrations like the Oscars and that sort of thing, horror movies are very seldomly recognized. Do you think it still has a sort of stigma attached to it?
Yeah, it has a stigma. It's not entirely undeserved, you know, because it's a genre that's full of a lot of garbage. You know, horror films can be made for low budget. And for that reason, there are a lot of bad ones, and there's a lot of inexperienced directors who go out and make mediocre horror films. The best of the horror genre does get recognized. The best of horror films, a lot of them are from the 70s, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Shining, 1980, Rosemary's Baby, 1969. You know, The Silence of the Lambs was the first horror film, I would call it a horror film, that won the Oscar. But those are few and far between. You know, in the last 20 years, Seven may be considered a horror film, but not a straight horror film. I think the problem lies less with critics or, you know, Oscar voters, and I think it lies more with the filmmakers, because I think that there aren't enough great filmmakers who are willing to stick with the genre, because the genre is not highly respected. A lot of directors who are good at it come in and make a great horror film, you know, but then they leave the genre. They don't want to continue to elevate the genre. I would love to see Gore Verbinski make another horror film. You know, he came in, he made The Ring. It's one of the best horror films of the last 20 years. And instead of continuing to elevate that genre, he went and made the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you know. And, you know, good for him. I'm sure he got rich, and they're good movies, and they're good, fun family movies. But you don't see, you know, we don't have a Hitchcock now. We don't have a Dario Argento. You know, we don't even have a Wes Craven anymore. You know, there aren't directors who are proud to be a part of the genre. And I think what needs to happen is, you know, some of these young directors that are coming up need to stick with the genre and be committed to elevating the art of horror. And Gothic storytelling, horrific storytelling, is a big part of great historical art. I mean, look at, you know, walk through the Louvre in France. It's nothing but a bunch of storyboards for horror films. You know, it's just centuries after century of torture, pain, death, and suffering, you know, and you know, I love the genre, and I want to be a part of trying to elevate it. I want to be a part of a community of filmmakers that are reaching down, trying to pull it up out of its you know, somewhat earned disrespect.